Hey everybody, Mark Walters here with bigfanboy.com, and I am sitting next to Adam Wingard. The movie is You're Next, which played last night and had a really great reaction, and I know that's got to be gratifying. I know this has been kind of a big journey for you.
To
get this thing, out there.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was crazy because right when we sold the film to Lionsgate, they had the Summit merger.
Yeah.
So we were nervous that we were going to get lost in that whole thing, and fortunately they were just so passionate about the film, and the Summit guys really got behind it as well. So it's going to see the light of day, thank God, and I think they're going to go all out on it, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, and being a guy that I love horror movies, and I mean obviously you're pretty immersed in this yourself, and I love seeing when someone takes something that is like a kind of a loved and well-known formula and then throws a really nice curveball into it. And I think that's what you've done here.
Well, I think everything has been done before a million different times, and the only way to get the heart or get to the heart of what made it work to begin with is to kind of deconstruct it a little bit. And the whole deconstructing and playing with the familiar tropes of the different subgenres, I think is like, it's sort of like, it's the best way to get to the root, the source of what made it work in the first place, while at the same time trying to push it to a different place and trying to take it to another level and do your own thing that's uniquely, it stands alone on itself, but it's also recognizing what made these type of things great to begin with,
Yeah. Just talked to Sharni a little while ago. She's so good. And you can tell that she's genuinely like enthusiastic about being a part of this and being able to play that role. What was the process of finding her for that? Because obviously, if that part isn't cast just right, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very difficult one because there wasn't a lot of precedent for this type of female hero in movies. Like, to me, one of the only other like really great female heroes was like Ripley, from the Alien films. I mean, there's been plenty, but like the really effective ones, I feel like have to be done in a very specific way. And going into this, we did our casting call, and it was really interesting because a lot of the girls came in there and did exactly what I didn't want them to do. And they showed up with like these really short, like cut off shorts and like a t-shirt that's like tied up, and they're kind of posing and acting tough and stuff. And, that was exactly what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to overly sexualize this girl. We wanted a pretty girl and everything that could, that would seem realistic, like in the way that it's written. But at the end of the day, that's not the point of it, And Sharni comes in there, and she wasn't trying to play the character. She just personified toughness. She is actually tough. And that's the important thing, is that she wasn't posing and pretending to be a badass. She just is. And, the character wasn't even written originally as Australian. That was one thing that, like, whenever Sharni read for it, we were just like, oh, this is kind of awesome, because, everything in Australia is bigger and more venomous and everything else. So you just get the feeling like that, even whether it's true or not, that everybody in Australia is actually more tough.
Right.
So we just kind of made that work. And plus, she's just, I feel like I really like how natural she is when she's using her own, accent and everything. And I didn't want to ruin that at all. So it's cool that everybody was on board with going down that route,
Yeah, well, and most of the times in horror movies, the girls in horror movies spend most of their time running away from stuff and screaming. And
the final girl is usually somebody who just gets lucky,
exactly.
And is there through circumstance and is smart enough to be able to thwart the violence on them, subtly, you know what I mean? And that's not what we wanted. We wanted a girl who actually took charge immediately and was able to control the situation while these, guys that, are 2 times as big as her are like bumbling around, and you know what I mean?
Did it take a while to figure out exactly what kind of masks you wanted to have there?
I mean, the weird thing was like Simon had written the script and he wrote it exactly as it is. It's a fox mask, tiger mask, and a lamb mask.
Yeah.
And but going into that, that's a broad thing still.
Sure.
So we looked at a lot of animal masks, and immediately, actually, my first idea was to just get some like the coolest animal masks that we could find that felt realistic to that world that these guys would actually get, and then just like paint them white, kind of like what they did with the Captain Kirk mask and Michael Myers. Michael Myers and Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
But we actually did explore a lot of different options. Like our art department, they sewed together different types of masks. We looked at all kinds of different things outside of the spectrum of what was written, and ultimately that just made the most sense, and it just pops because I'm a really big fan of like iconic either monsters or like really cool like villains like Michael Myers, Jason, and the Scream mask and stuff like that. That kind of stuff always made an impact on me as a kid, and was part of the reasons why I was so excited about even going to see Scream whenever I saw it. It was like seeing the trailer and see how cool the masks were. So going into this, I really wanted to try to make sure that we did have our own iconic thing, and you don't know if it's going to stick or not until afterwards. But I think it does, and it's not just the mask; it's also the culmination of, Emma Potter, who's the costume designer. She did a great job of like figuring out, because the characters aren't just uniformly wearing the same thing. Each one of the killers has a customized costume and stuff to go with their personality, and even the masks were either used to accentuate their personality or go in the complete opposite direction. Like the lamb mask, for instance, he's the most vicious, killer, and he's the most physically imposing, but at the same time, we picked the most docile animal out of the three. You know what I mean? And playing fun with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Also, the first time I remember reading about this, I guess was 2 years ago, maybe. And talk a little bit about what's that feeling like being being here at South by Southwest. With that audience and hearing that reaction, and I mean, there's just got to be no better way to see the movie than with that kind of crowd.
Well, no, I mean, when we were going into making this film, we were doing it from the perspective of actually thinking about the audience in mind. And that's something that we had never done before, because everything else, all of our previous films were all very, very low budget independent films that we were lucky just to get made. So all the stylistic choices, to some degree, were influenced greatly by the budgetary constraints of the project. So. Going into this, we didn't have to really worry about that quite as much, and I wanted to do something that just reflected exactly what the material was. So that meant using more conventional cinematic language, so that and not relying on experimental gimmicks to get us through it. And so that meant that we were able to. Basically make a movie, exactly how it's written, and not influenced by, the. I just lost my train of thought. But you guys get where I'm going with that.
You know what? It's been a long festival, and I'm surprised that you're hanging on.
I think I got pretty much what I wanted out of that.
I think you did too. The one other thing I was going to say was we talked to Shari about the concept of, because there is that ambiguity at the end of the movie, that is this something you could see maybe exploring?
Oh yeah,
keep exploring it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films when you watch it, it's like there's not like an obvious sequel, which is cool about it. But I think we actually have a really solid idea for a sequel.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Simon and I have talked a lot about it and stuff. So I think we know where to take it. I think actually we know where to take it if we did 3 movies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of places this could go.
Exactly.
And I think it's infinitely interesting to.
Yeah, and really it's just gonna depend on what the audience reaction is to the first film. I mean, I know the people who see it usually generally like it, but it'll be more a matter of the film. The moviegoer is going to show up when it's in the theater, and if they do, and there's a demand for the sequel, then that'll definitely be something that we're prepared to do, and so forth. And hopefully we'll have time, and if not, we're going to find a team of people that can execute it in a way that's totally unique and everything in itself. So
we got to wrap this up, but what's up next for you? I know you got VHS 2 and all that stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're about to shoot a movie in a couple months. Same team, producers and Simon writing a movie called The Guest, and we're going to go.
You guys are the dynamic duo.
Yeah. Well, it's me and Simon, we work like better than I've ever worked with anybody, and our producers Keith Calder and Jessica Wu, they really helped us bring it up a notch.
Yeah.
And so we really are like a full team. Everybody does their own thing, and we all keep each other in check, and that's the important thing. And that's why Your Next is the movie that it is because everybody was not making decisions other than based on what is making the best film and the tightest film, and looking at it from an outside perspective, and not thinking oh, this would be cool if this happened. It was always like, this is the story, and this is how to make this as effective as possible. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to find, because you have to find people who actually have like-minded ideas that you trust and stuff, and I think we all trust each other, and so it's a great team, and it's a great way of working,
Adam Wingard, the movie is Your Next. Check it out. We'll have more information underneath this where you can find information about Your Next and where you're going to be able to see it. And thank you so much for coming to South by Southwest. I hope that you get a chance to relax after this, because you've earned it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.